So moving on, you guys. My wife, other day, she tells me that her friend's daughter just bought something called a dumb phone. And I said, what's a dumb phone? And she said, it's a phone that doesn't have any apps. Apparently, kids are buying these things on purpose because they think smartphones are turning their brains into goo. And, well, got me to thinking. I'm getting older. Sometimes I look around, I don't even recognize the world I'm living in anymore. Things are changing every day, and not always for the better. And it's time to talk for a moment about how things were just a little bit more simple back in my day. Back in my day, there were no dumb phones. If you wanted a phone that only served basic functions and didn't let you watch videos, you just bought a regular iPhone and took it for a ride on the New York City subway system. Because down there, it's always 2003. First you'd lose your apps, then your data plan, nobody knows how. The subway giveth and the subway taketh away. And also, it don't really giveth. Back in my day, we didn't join run clubs to meet people we wanted to date. Back in my day, running was already a part of dating. She'd say she wanted to have kids within the year, and you'd run right out of there. Back in my day, we weren't waiting 13 years for Grand Theft Auto 6 Liberty City Slickers. Back in my day, if you wanted to do a little carjacking, you just drove to a Wendy's, parked discreetly behind a dumpster, and got down to business. It was a different kind of carjacking, but on the upside, it was a victimless crime. Back in my day, we didn't have to worry about AI slop on Facebook. Back in my day, we didn't need AI. We had regular slop on Facebook. Like the kind posted by your mom's friend Janet, who has no inner monologue, no filter, and some pretty strong views about non-binary people that she liked to type out in all caps directly underneath photos of her grandkids at Disney World. That's good slop, Rusty. Back in my day, dating apps weren't declining. No, sir. Back in my day, declining is what women would do when you asked them out at a bar. Especially when your haircut looked like you'd personally offended the barber. Just FYI, back in my day, that also wasn't a good haircut. Back in my day, nobody was drinking raw milk. Utter sauce! Back in my day, if you wanted to kill yourself with a beverage, you drank Jolt Cola. One sip of that extra caffeinated soda, and there was a Seth-shaped hole in the side of my parents' house. That stuff was insane. It was like Four Loko minus the alcohol plus meth. If you're wondering why folks did so much cocaine in the 80s, it's because they needed something to take the edge off the Jolt Cola. Want to see what I look like on Jolt Cola? Speaking of beverages, back in my day, there was no prebiotic soda. If you wanted healthy soda, you drank Diet Coke. No sugar, no calories, and only 26 grams of mysterious, impossible-to-pronounce chemicals per serving. You know, for people who care what they put in their bodies. Oh, sorry about that. That must have been that all-natural potassium benzamate. Back in my day, they weren't rebooting Malcolm in the Middle. Back then, TV networks had original ideas, like rebooting 90210 or The Fresh Prince or Gossip Girl or Full House, Gilmore Girls, Frasier, Dexter, Mad About You, Saved by the Bell, which is all just to say, are you seriously telling me no one's making a Perfect Strangers revival? No one. For sake, they rebooted Roseanne without Roseanne. Meanwhile, Perfect Strangers is just sitting there like the juiciest peach on the tree, and you're gonna leave it unplucked? Bronson Pinchot is alive. Mark Lynn Baker, alive. The one woman who played the one girlfriend, alive. And look, I got your first episode right here. ICE tries to deport Balky back to Mypos. Go write it up. I and the entire audience is already laughing. Sorry, I gotta make some withering eye contact with my writers real quick. Back in my day, people weren't taping their mouths shut to improve sleep quality. CPAPpies. Back in my day, if you taped your mouth shut before sleeping, it's because you read one of those studies about how Americans swallow 8 spiders a year in their sleep. And you weren't gonna let one more of those little in. Nice try. Back in my day, there was no Shrek 5. If you ask me, making a Shrek 5 is ogre kill. Oh, I think they got it, Rusty. I just think they didn't care for it. Back in my day, we didn't have AI girlfriends. No, sir. Back then, if you fell in love with something digital, it was Clippy. Clippy, the paperclip assistant from Microsoft Word. Sure, he was just a digitally rendered paperclip with eyes, but damn. He was helpful, and he had, at the risk of sounding superficial, a perfect ass. Do we have a picture of that thing? Clippy, you're a whole ass meal. And finally, back in my day, people weren't watching Heated Rivalry, a steamy show about 2 rival hockey players who've been secretly in love for years. Back in my day, the only heated rival we cared about in skating was Nancy Kerrigan and Tanya Harding. Yeah, it wasn't a love story, but it had a lot of the same elements. Ice skating, fierce competition, and someone getting piped from behind. You didn't like that one, Rusty? Well, guess what? The spider's going back in. Yeah, what are you gonna do? What are you gonna, oh, look at that. Well, I'm sorry I had to do that, everybody, but sometimes this grumpy geezer's got a grouse. This has been Back in My Day. We'll be right back with Tessa Thompson.